Thank you, and it's great to be here. Good afternoon to all. I am also, while I'm excited to be here, I'm also relieved that there was one session between me and Caroline's presentation earlier. That's for sure. I'm resetting expectations. So today, I would like to actually talk about three things. The first is how AI has transformed software development and software engineering in particular, right? And the second part is about Propel's transformation into an AI-forward company. I'll be talking mostly about the product and engineering aspects of it, but in general, we have transformed into an AI-forward company. I'll speak about our journey. And of course, the third one is what this means for you, our customers, right? This transformation only makes sense if you are seeing an enhanced experience of Propel, right? So that's what we will cover. Now, I think we can all agree that we are in the midst of a very unprecedented time with AI, right? We have gone through multiple transformations in the past, obviously the internet, then came the mobile era, and then the cloud. But this seems different. I think we can all agree. One of the reasons that I find is that it's the exponential growth that we are kind of in the midst of, right? We are experiencing that rapid change in everything related to AI. Now, no matter what we do in our profession, I think AI has impacted us one way or the other, directly or indirectly. Now, nowhere, in my opinion, it seems today at least, this impact more than in software development. You may have read a lot about it. Obviously, it's all over the news as well. And I would like to give you a sense of why and what that means. Now, why is that so? Actually, some of the numbers will give it away. The fact is that AI has impacted the very core of what it means to be in software engineering. The core activity in software engineering is actually used to be writing code. Now, with AI, though, we are no longer kind of doing that. So as the number states here, 51% of all new code contributed or committed to GitHub is actually written by AI today. This is a report from last week. And 90%, according to Gartner, 90% of software engineers will be using AI to produce code by the end of 2026, right? Now, the number in the middle, which is 6 months, is all it took for Claude Code to go from 0 to 1 billion in annualized revenue. Now, all this put together, you can kind of see where it's going, which is that most people are writing code, generating code using AI and no longer actually writing all the code. Obviously, humans are in the middle in terms of review and in terms of planning and so on. We'll talk more about it. That's why the impact is felt so much in software engineering today. Now, let's see what the industry thought leaders have to say. According to Google CEO Sundar Pichai, more than 75% of Google's code base is now written by AI, right? So I'm an ex-Googler myself. I understand how big that code base is, Google 3 for Arnab, who might know that, and huge code base. And for him to come out and say 75% of that code is now written by AI, it's phenomenal. Now, if you look at the right side with Dario Amodei, who is the CEO of Anthropic, Anthropic actually reported, again, as of last week, that they will grow 80x this year in annualized revenue. Now, that was revised up from 10x just a couple of months ago. So, and again, a lot of that is driven by a surge in demand for Claude Code, along with other products, obviously. And obviously, Wall Street has also taken notice, right? So we've all seen some of the software stocks have taken a beating last year. Some of them are down 40 to 50%. Obviously, Wall Street has come to a different conclusion compared to, in this, and the reality is a lot more nuanced than that, right? Now, I do think there will be winners and losers in this. That's for sure, right? And at the same time, it will depend on which side of the AI line those companies are, right? So that will take us to the second part of what I want to talk about. Almost a little more than a year ago, Propel decided which part of this line that we wanted to be on, right? And we made a very conscious decision to actually become an AI-forward company. So we'll talk about this journey that took us here. All right. Now, before I go into this, again, I want to say that I will be talking about it in the context of product and engineering. So when we want to talk about how AI is impacting a certain domain, you want to understand the domain first, right? And that's why I have this in place with respect to product and engineering. You want to understand the software development workflow before we understand the impact of AI. All right, it's not very different from the product life that you are used to in the when you're manufacturing a physical device, right? It starts with the concept, there's design, there's development, there's testing, there's validation, and then the launch, and then there are multiple iterative loops within that. So it's not very different from that. I will just point out, and in fact, even there are prototypes in hardware as well. So if you look at it, I'm just classifying this as two broad loops here. One is the design loop that you see on the left-hand side, and then the develop loop on the right-hand side, right? So design loop is where there are specifications, adherence to customer requirements, if you will. A lot of the design docs are written. High-level planning and high-level design is thought through, right? So this happens. And then in the develop loop, it's all about execution. It's about writing code. It's about writing tests, code reviews, and getting it actually materialized, right? So in between these two loops, you would see there is this prototyping phase, which actually can prove to be fairly important, right? As we know, even in the physical device, you just don't go from design into manufacturing. You would try this out with some prototypes to make sure, iron out some kinks and make sure you're building the right thing, and then go into full production. Kind of similar in concept, I would say. All right, so having level set, I would also say that the left side of the design loop is more of the what. What are you building? Who is your audience, right? What problem does it solve, or what problems does it solve? And the right side is about the how, and how are you doing it, right? So, and that's primarily the code on the right-hand side. Traditionally, what we have seen is that the develop loop takes over most of the energy, if you will. It takes up most of the time. It is time-consuming. Writing code was time-consuming. I deliberately use the word was. It was time-consuming, error-prone, and it consumed a lot of resources. Now, which also had the side effect of shrinking the design loop, which is where you're spending a lot more time defining the what you want to build, and making sure you're building the right thing, right? Now, what AI has made possible, and in an AI-forward organization, you'd see that the develop loop has actually shrunk, right? And the balance has shifted more towards, or in fact, there is a little bit more balance in terms of the effort. It is leaning more towards the design side of things, right? This allowed us to do that. Why? Because you can now generate code using products like Cursor, using products like Claude Code and others, Google Anti-Gravity, in a matter of hours, what used to take days and weeks. And I'm not, this is not even an exaggeration. It is really possible. Now, so this means that we can spend more time on the design side of things, ensuring that we're building the right product, right, and building it right. Right? So, in other words, even our velocity as actually can be a lot more in terms of going from an idea to a working solution. That whole journey can be shrunk overall. And it also provides us an opportunity to spend more time actually on what we saw in the middle, prototyping, right? And to make sure we are building the right thing. We'll talk about it a little bit more. All right, now just to make, I just mentioned it here, this is actually the shift left that's happening in product development, right? We're shifting left, ensuring that a lot of this is handled early on rather than towards the end. Okay, but this transformation does take time. Just because an organization purchases an AI platform or a solution like Claude Code, you just don't change overnight, right? It doesn't happen that way. And I'll tell you why. There is obviously a lot of buy-in, and we have seen that. There's a lot of great speakers who spoke to us before me. In fact, we did the same thing too. It happened a year ago. In fact, buy-in from stakeholders, including our CEO, as well as, most importantly, from our CFO. Just a side thing that we do call our CFO the Godfather. Not the least because he's Italian, but we were able to convince him. So enough that we were able to buy 2 important tools that we end up using in Propel today, which has kind of become the brain trust, if you will. Cassidy AI is one such solution. Cassidy is similar. There are other products in this space. Glean comes to mind as one of the other products that is popular. And Claude Code. Right? So, and along with that, there's process changes. There should be a willingness of the organization to try different things, because this is uncharted territory in some ways. And oftentimes, when we are in uncharted territory, we need to try, and sometimes we might fail, in which case we fail fast, learn from it, and move forward. Right? And so that willingness needs to be there. And as a startup, I think we have that in our DNA. And that made it easier for us. And obviously, last but not the least, is bringing the team together. So training the team. So one thing we did early on is to start a Slack channel where everyone actually contributed in terms of what they learned that particular day. In fact, it's almost on a daily basis, as I think, Ryan, you pointed out yesterday. Almost on a daily basis, there is something new happening. And so, people shared. And, Claude Code skills, for instance, right? Something that is currently taking off, might be useful for a lot of other developers as well, and so on. All right, just a quick thing on this diagram. Oh, and before I go here, let me actually also point out, on the right-hand side, as you can see here, AI is only as good as the data and the context that is provided, right? We all know this, that AI can hallucinate and very confidently hallucinate if that is not the case. But in this, the tool that we are building, sometimes call it the Propel AI or the Propel Brain, if you will. Now, we want it to be accurate. We want it to be deterministic, because we are taking decisions based off of that, right? Hence, we spent a lot of time actually building the knowledge base, complete knowledge base of everything about Propel. So let's take products about Propel, right? We built a complete knowledge base collected all the documents where there is product information, whether it's, as you can see on the right-hand side, is a lot of it is about the knowledge base here. So product knowledge is kind of buried in many, many different documents, whether it's user guides, release notes, webinars, videos, test cases, specifications, PRDs, and so on and so forth. We collected all that as part of the knowledge base. And at the same time, we also connected it to systems that are integral, which are systems of truth with respect to product and engineering. Those are like GitHub, Jira, Confluence. We have TestRail, where we store our test cases. Just to give you 4 or 5 examples here. Now, these were connected using MCP, and connected to our both Claude as well as Cassidy. Now, this is context and very precise information that we have curated and made available to our Propel AI. Now, this was a very key step. And on the left-hand side of that, you would see that we have built a lot of assistants persona-based assistance for specific purposes. So there is the what we call as Propel Sage. We called it Sage because it is the all-knowing product assistant, right? Any question about the product, that's where everyone goes in the company today to ask questions. Yesterday, somebody at the PUG had asked, hey, when was Notifications 2.0 released? And I think Eric pulled up Sage, and the answer came out in less than 5 minutes. Saying, hey, this is where, and that information is on our fingertips at this point because Sage is also available to us through our internal Slack. So that's the kind of thing that is possible with this. So let me actually, let me actually walk you through what this means and kind of go through a demo with all of that, right? So most important thing here is that we are connected to the systems of truth, and it's grounded in that, in those sources of truth with the knowledge base, right? And that was important to get it right. And at this point, we feel really good that we are able to now leverage that in different contexts, right? So with that, let me actually jump to a demo. Thank you. Now, in this, what you're seeing here is Cassidy, which is basically, as I pointed out, one of the our AI platform where we brought these things together. Now, the scenario that I'm going to be kind of talking about is, let's say we wanted to, in this particular case, we wanted to make an enhancement to the product, right? And in this particular example for the demo, I've used our training module as an example. Now, in this case, so let me just scroll through a little bit. So it's just showing that this is one of the agents that is available on the platform. Sage is yet another one. These are all connected to different, they have, the knowledge base is similar. However, they all have different purpose, and hence there's a lot of the instructions, the prompts, everything is very different. And we have kind of curated that over time. Now, in this case, coming back to our use case here, we want to enhance our training user experience. Now, that is the scenario. Now, the product manager for this goes into Propel AI in this case and starts to find out, hey, what are customers reported on our existing training user experience? What are, instead of having to now go into Jira, which is the system of truth, and having to dig into that in detail, the product manager can actually now ask a question here. And since this is connected and grounded in Jira, it actually brings up a lot of information and actually creates a pattern. These are some of the patterns that it has noticed, and also the fact that you can see on the right-hand side, it has connected it back to different tickets, right? Where it found those patterns. It's that kind of citation is very important, the fact that it's grounded in reality, right, in truth. Now, let me step into the next part. Now, I'm a developer working on this. I've been assigned to work on this feature, but I'm not very familiar with the training use cases and how our end users use this today, right? So I want to learn more. So I go into Sage, which is our product expert, and I ask it, hey, tell me about the use cases and as it relates to the training assignments, and what are those journeys that an end user takes, right? So now I can do that, and it again points me to all the different use cases, and it again provides citations there, right? Now, this level of stuff is important. I can have follow-up questions. Hey, what is the, what is the trainer workflow, and so on and so forth. Now, jumping on to Claude Code, right? Claude Code is also connected to all those very same systems, and this is where I'm obviously generating the code, going through that process. I'll spare you the details about the coding part, but I will jump back into this. So it is important to note that even within Claude Code, we have spent a lot of time actually configuring Claude Code with all the information about our code base, like the patterns that are in our code base, our best practices, our guidelines, and also configured it with skills that talk about user experience. So when Claude generates code, it's not just randomly generating some code based on information it has from prior, but instead it's grounded in the user guidelines, the user experience guidelines that we have asked Claude Code to do, right? And hence it's rooted in that, right? Which is important. Now, while that is going on, the QA engineer in charge of this is looking at it, is supposed to test this from a quality perspective. Now this is an existing feature, and hence QA, the quality engineer is concerned that we shouldn't be regressing on any existing functionality. So while we are redesigning a feature, let's make sure that the existing functionality is not broken, right? So they go in, actually they pull in, it pulls in a lot of information, in fact, from our source of truth in this case is TestRail. And TestRail we have documented a whole bunch of test cases, and it's pulling that information from TestRail and bringing it in this context of wanting to know, hey, in the context of training assignment, what are those test cases that are needed? And it puts it into use cases, which is great, right? Now this is also great information for the developer, because now I can take this information and give it to Claude Code and make sure that the code that you generate, ensure that it satisfies all these use cases. And that's important, right? Now you now have Claude Code thinking about it and starting to make changes and looking at the code it has generated. It does a static code analysis, and in fact, it can even spawn Google Chrome and actually walk through those. You can actually click through those things, right? So if it says, hey, go click here and then click here and there, it can actually do that. Claude Code can do this, right? And Google Chrome, in fact, has an MCP that Claude Code connects to. And through that, it's able to give these instructions, test it, and also do an analysis to make sure the code adheres to these requirements and the test cases that have been written, right? Now, with all that, we are now, at this point, ready to the code has been generated, and the new UI is now available to test. Obviously, I go through multiple iterations of testing the UI, making sure it is satisfying the requirements and so on, right? So, and now here we have a prototype of a new training user experience where it's an enhanced user experience, but at the same time making sure that the initial and original requirements are still met, right? So just wanted to give you a sense of what this flow looks like from the perspective of building something in an AI-forward manner. All right. Let me just scroll through. So here's the quiz that's being taken, and viewing of documents, and then finally signing off, and so on and so forth, right? All right. Now, one thing I just wanted to quickly also point out here. So the code has been written. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the code most of the code, or even all of it, is written by Claude Code here. But humans are there in the loop in terms of reviewing the code. So what software developers do is that, in our case, we use GitHub. There is this process called a pull request. So you can roughly think of pull requests as the equivalent of an ECO in the physical world, right? So ECO is where you are checking the changes and making sure there is reviews going on and approvals happening. In the same way, in software, obviously, I'm making changes to the software and have both human reviewers look at the changes that I'm making and providing the guidance and so on. Now, this is where there's yet another really useful part of it, which is that, let me just scroll just a little bit, yes. Now, as you can see here, there is actually a code review agent that's running as well. Along with the human reviewers, there is actually a code review agent that has gone through the same source code changes that I've made, and it's pointing out certain areas where I might be missing something, right? Maybe, Matt, this is very, very important, because if I don't address it here, it might end up as a bug, and if, worst case, it might end up getting shipped, and a customer might find it. I don't want that to happen. So to me, the pull request, or in the physical world, the ECO, is actually a very important gate where you can find things early. This is, again, going back to that shifting left. Can you find things early on? Because if it gets later, obviously we're going to pay a much bigger price for it, right? In our case, it might end up being a bug in our system, which is not something I want, right? So, so even here, AI is able to help us, and again, it's grounded in all this knowledge base that is there. So there are multiple gates that we can do. The other interesting part, the reason I showed this, is that now this, if you can switch back to, now the reason I wanted to say this is, you heard about the change analyst agent today. This is actually doing exactly that in the context of an ECO. This is yet another prototype that we built, and you saw it in action earlier during the keynote. Which is, so we are learning whatever, since we are using AI in a very AI-forward manner and we are learning these things, we are looking at ways in which we can bring some of that learnings back into our product as well. And this is one such example where we feel that ECO part, can we add an agent that is going to help and augment a human reviewer of an ECO, because a lot of this information, just like in code, might be buried in different sources. And AI can do a better job often in terms of augmenting what a human can do, in terms of finding things that is hard to find and making connections and so on. So this is one other prototype that's currently in the works. Happy to, please, actually, tomorrow Steve and Chandra have a breakout session at 9 a.m. in the morning, and they're going to go through this in a lot more detail. Please attend that if you have questions, and then they can help answer. The other one we are really excited about is this variant BOM configurator. So this is, oftentimes, I've heard this term being used, 150% BOMs, and being able to derive 100% BOMs from 150% BOMs. I know it's a very technical term there, but essentially going from a BOM that has different options, variants, and going to a more, and using rules to determine how to get to generate multiple 100% BOMs. Here, I've just used the example of a data center, just as an example here. But depending on the type of data center or the type of options and so on, you end up with different things on the right-hand side, right? So another exciting demo, again, come and find us if you would like to learn more or see this in action. So I'm just going down to the final part, which is actually what this means to you, our customers, right? The first part is that we are innovating really, really fast, right? I think you saw that yesterday, you saw that today, the number of new huge features that we are delivering, whether it's in Propel 1, Document Management 2.2, Design Hub last a few months ago, and some of these newer ones that are up and coming. We are moving really, really fast, and thanks to all of these, the AI-forward product development. The other thing is to build a high-quality product. We're delivering we'll continue to deliver higher quality product that has smarter UX and performs better, right? And obviously, we'll be more and more responsive to your ideas and your needs as well. Our customer support team is actually using Sage, in fact, and there are various ways in which even our customer support teams have actually improved in terms of the response times and other things. So overall, we are able to provide a much, much better experience for you. All right, with that, I'd like to say that there's never been a more incredible moment as a builder. I've been in the industry for more than 30 years. To me, this is one of those really, really exciting times as a builder. I'm excited, my team is excited, and we are raring to go. But thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you.